Hi there, I'm Stan Baker, one of the hosts of Circle Forum, along with Shelley Steele and Steve Young. In this, the third of 4 podcasts, we discuss some research we were part of on a student attendance research pilot project with some school districts in northwestern Ontario. And the question we're looking at is, what was the impact on other adults? In this podcast, we discuss how every interaction holds the potential to make a profound difference, whether with a student or, in the case of this question, the impact on the adults. There are various stories from participants who illustrate how this project has catalyzed a paradigm shift in the way that educators perceive their roles and responsibilities, and the recognition that it's the little things that can make a big difference. Visit our website, www.restorative.ca, to read through the anecdotes and stories about how student data is used, about the compelling need for authentic connections and understanding, and about the many layers of impact that extend far beyond the classroom. The conversation's already underway, so let's join Shelley, Steve, and me, Stan. Let's talk about the impact of this research project on the educators themselves and on their connections with other adults.
Some of them actually notice when they reflect on it, notice that it actually had a change in how they perceived what they were doing every day. For instance, one person said the project made them more aware of the impact that just their interactions can have on others throughout any given day. Hadn't really thought about that before. Because of this project, was now really listening to what people were saying and observing their own behavior and realizing they do have an impact. That a lot of adults in this world and teachers in the education world will say and do things during a day and not think about it. So being intentional in what you do is important. And so some of the teachers are figuring this out just through this project.
One of the statements that stood out to me was, and it followed up, and not only shifted from understanding the impact they're having, it shifted them from understanding impact away from judgment. And that is huge, because we know whatever we're feeling as we're hearing a message or delivering it is going to influence how it comes out or how we take that message in. So if we're taking it in with judgment, what's coming out is probably judgment and not going to help the relationship building. Some of the other ones there were renew focus to develop relationships, to really be purposeful about that, and not just a given that there's 25 students in front of me or 15 other staff members. So it's just a given that we have a relationship. So it was a renewed focus that we might have to work at this a little bit, and that it doesn't have to be a huge chore. It just has to be intentional, that not everybody is just automatically going to connect with me because I am the teacher. So some folks start to have that connection or that reflection.
And the intention is not on teaching math, not on teaching science, not on teaching socials, but the intention that we're setting and that we're hearing from the educators is the intention to build those connections with simple things, using their name, greeting them at the door, having the 2-minute conversation, all of those little things that happen in the course of the day that really help build the relationships and the connections.
The other thing that stood out to me there was them understanding the use of data and understanding and thinking about the questions that needed to be asked rather than just looking at the numbers. And I think for a lot of people, that was really a moment of, there's more to know here. And then once I know, I can figure out what my role is here or not. If this isn't something, I can't change the bus route, but I'm aware that this is the issue. So what role can I play in that? Can I be a voice? Can I make sure the work is sent on, whatever that may be? But once I understand the reason behind the data, then I feel I can be more of a part of the team to improve it.
I think the data question, it came up a lot in our conversations, and certainly, Stan, you mentioned this in a previous podcast about how do we access the data, and can the teachers have access to the data on a more regular basis rather than just going on, hey, that kid seems to be away a lot. What are the numbers? What are the dates? What are the reasons behind that? I think some of the administrators that we worked with, one in particular that I recall quite clearly, he was really tracking the data closely. And I think that because he was, it became much more of an intentional practice every day to make sure those kids were there or not there. And he was charting it on his own graph. And then he could see, holy cow, some of these kids really are absent a lot more. I just knew they weren't here a lot, but now I know exactly how much they're not here. And that's a lot. Boy, do I have to do something about it. So it almost forced his hand to become more intentional to put those kids on his list and make connections. And it was simply because he was tracking the data. There is an impact when you start to use the data. But we found in the project that not all teachers have access to that data on a very timely basis. And maybe they can track it themselves on their own. And, a homeroom teacher could check it down themselves, and they might have a pretty good idea who's not there all the time. But you got a million other things you're thinking about through a day and a week, and you forget that so-and-so wasn't there on a certain day. It does become a mess if you don't track it, so have access to it.
It was interesting too, because we had asked everyone to use the 2x10 with another adult in the building to build connections. And quite a number of people, first of all, they felt awkward making a colleague the object of their research. However, they did work through that. And many of them reported that they learned new things about their colleagues that they didn't know before, simply by being intentional about building those connections. Now, what came out of that for me, and certainly came out of it for a number of people that were involved in this project, was what if we took that intention of connecting with adults and turned it towards some of the parents? And we had some great conversations with some of the schools about, let's be more intentional about making the adult connection the parent of a child who is at risk of absenteeism. And that's developed into a phase 2 of this project, which we'll talk about in another podcast, to really focus our attention on the parents.
There was a couple of people that commented that this isn't new information. We were looking for new answers. We wanted something to change, something different. And that really got me to thinking that people are looking for the secret sauce, the thing that's just going to fix this attendance issue. And many are saying, we already know this stuff. And I'm sure they do, but then that led me to, why are you not using it then? What is it? Maybe that's the question. Why aren't you using it? What's getting in the way of you believing that if you already know these things, if you're intentional with it, that it's going to make a change? And that's another whole question. But they're looking for that, whether we say quick fix, they're looking for something different. I don't think they need a whole lot of different. They need it framed or packaged in a way that feels usable to them, and then be able to reflect on the impact of it.
And people were looking for big things, right? Like big things, like the whole secret sauce recipe. And what they came back with was, it's small, simple things. It's things like knowing people's names. It's being intentional. It's building connections on a day-to-day basis. It's those, just being aware of the fact that these relationships actually matter. The little things that you're doing actually can make a big difference. And that's the piece that I think is part of the secret sauce recipe.
Absolutely.
But we were looking for something bigger. You're doing little things, and those little things can make a huge difference for kids and for parents.
And perhaps it's because the problem seems so overwhelming that we just want to be able to flip a switch and for it to be better. But we all know that really isn't what's going to work.
And I think it's important for everyone to recognize that there are things that you can do, not everything. And the things that you can do are within the scope of your job, which are things like what we just talked about. And some of the bigger questions and some of the bigger picture things, we can't do much about those, but let's do the things that we can. And let's not focus on the things that we can't change.
For many years as a teacher and in education as a whole, attendance was always somebody else's problem to deal with. It was the teacher's problem. I'm here, I got my lessons planned, they're just not showing up. It's not my fault. And I think what this project started, we made the point quite a few times, and I think a lot of them start to realize that what the teacher does on a day-to-day basis can have an impact on attendance. And that there are some simple things that you can do that can maybe influence a child's attendance at school over the long run. Now, it's not just about a letter going home or some punitive process or Children's Aid or some other outside organization coming down on the family saying, get your kids to school. It's about motivating kids to want to be at school. This is what we're saying. It's within your purview as a teacher, you do have some impact on children's attendance. You can't just say, I'm at school every day with my lessons planned. That's all I have to do. More than that.
Impact and intentionality. This makes a difference daily in schools. And it's one of the things we've learned from the ATSA 2x10 research project. It's evident that every interaction, great or small, matters in shaping the trajectory of student attendance and engagement. Check out our website, www.restorative.ca, for more information on how to make connections with others using restorative practices. And let's keep on intentionally connecting with students and with adults in your workplace, one conversation at a time.